Yo, what's going on, guys? And welcome back. We are starting the red team path. Now, I'm actually really excited about this. I'm going to show you guys the path here. All right, we have the red teaming path. Now, we already did the red team fundamentals on the junior pen testing path, I believe. So I will put that in the playlist, and you guys can go back and look at that if you want. But we're going to do red team engagements today, and we're going to keep going through these. Now, I'll tell you, this is probably the most important box. And I know nobody's going to agree with me because everyone is going to say, well, you're not actually doing any hacking. You're not actually doing anything. But this is the one skill set that every pen tester does not realize how important it is. And pen testers that have been around for a while will tell you the same thing. But people that are getting into pen testing, they completely skip this skill set. And then they get into pen testing and they're like, this isn't as fun as I thought. I thought we were going to do some hacking, not 4 hours of, writing standard procedures to each hour of hacking, that type of thing. So keep in mind, this is key to success in every red team engagement. Now, red teaming, as we covered in red team fundamentals, is different than pen testing, but I would just like to go ahead and reiterate that. Now, here we go. Here's what we're going to learn. Boom. Defining scope and objectives. This is the most important thing in any engagement. I don't care if it's pen testing, blue team, red team, purple team, whatever. This is the most important thing you can do, and that is define your scope. Now, the reason this is so important is because you guys don't realize how easy it is to step outside that scope. Let's say you have this CIDR notation address here, and you go ahead and you do an in-map scan, and you notice 10.0.2.8 is, available, right? And you don't pay close enough attention, or you have someone underneath you that's a junior pen tester that's new, and they're like, oh yeah, I got a target, and they go ahead and take that over. You have now done something illegal. You now have to get a lawyer, and you can be sued, or you can go to jail. And you're doing your job. You made one mistake. You made a little error. So keep that in mind. Now, here you're going to define the scopes and the objectives. I'm not going to read this to you, word for word. You guys can read, I hope. So we're going to go ahead and answer some questions. So read the example client objectives and answer the question. So this is the client example objectives. Boom. So this is what they're hoping to accomplish, right? Here's example one, global enterprise. Identify system misconfigurations, network. So this is very high level. It's very just basic, hey, boom. Evaluate overall security posture, SIEM detection, remediation, segmentation. Okay, perfect. So no answer needed for that. What CIDR range is permitted to be attacked? So the scope, here is the scope. They've defined it. And so when I say they defined it, this is all they're allowed to do. And you can see here they have this, and it is permitted, and this is prohibited. So this specifically, if you do anything to that, you now broke the law. Keep that in mind. So now, what CIDR range is permitted? Right here, 10.0.4.0.22, that is permitted. Is the use of white cards permitted? And I think it says yes in here. Hold on. Yep, use of white cards is permitted. If you guys don't know what white cards are, it's a way to simulate certain events, so that way, it saves some time and money and resources. So, for instance, you want to say that hey, this guy, this help desk guy did something, right? Or the help desk guy is going to report that, hey, I found someone in the network. What do you do, right? That's a white card, meaning basically go to the help desk. Hey, someone's reporting that we're getting attacked right now. What do we do, right? Instead of actually attacking and then seeing what they do. Now, the reason they do this is, again, it saves time, resources for certain things that just aren't worth the hassle, right? So it's just not worth the effort. So, for instance, let's say we have a guy, we want to do an insider threat attack, right? Meaning we want someone from the inside to help us. Now, could we theoretically, if you had enough employees, go around and eventually get someone to help us? Probably. But that might take weeks, you know what I mean? Because we might have to really scope the person out, find out what, become friendly with them, all that stuff. That's not worth the hassle. We can just simulate that happened. All right. So that's what they mean by that. So Are you permitted to access the be the change .xyz? Prohibited, so no. All right. Rules of engagement. This is where the bread and the butter is. This is what's going to tell you what you can and what you cannot do, right? So this is the executive summary. This is what you're going to look at. Now, I have it pulled up here, I think. They have a very, very, very small one here, you can see. So this is the executive summary of the rules of engagement. There's not a whole lot here, but this is what we're going to be using to answer the questions. So we'll go ahead and scroll down. Now, keep in mind, you're going to be creating these as on the red team, but the other side, the blue team or the customer, has to agree to them. That's another big thing. You guys are going to find a middle ground and agree to them. This is not something you just go, hey, this is what we're going to do, so we're doing it. No, you have to agree to them, okay? So first thing it's going to ask, how many explicit restrictions are specified? Explicit restrictions, 1, 2, 3. Now, this is very common. You see any form of DDoS or DOS is prohibited. That's going to be extremely common because most of these systems are in use when you're doing pen tests and they can't be brought down. So anything that might bring a system down should be ran by the customer, okay? Especially when working with critical systems. All right. Now, so we have 3. What is the first access type mentioned in the document? And you can see the first access type mentioned right there, access types, is phishing. And then they're going to do physical and social engineering. So if we go through this, you can see the objectives are pretty self-explanatory. They're high level. They're just going to tell you, we're going to do this pen test to try and assess your security posture. Here's your restrictions. So you can't do these things. Here's the targets that you can do, okay? And then what activities are you authorized to do? You can do reconnaissance, you can phish, you can physical and social engineer. And then here, the positioning, assume breach scenario, meaning we're going to already give you an assumed breach scenario, so you're already in the network. And then how is that going to impact? So that's kind of the high level of what the executives are going to see, whether they sign off on it or not. So keep that in mind. The better you can make these reports, and I mean the better, I'm being serious when I say not just how much detail you give them, but how good are the reports? How, good do they look even? And I know that sounds silly because you're thinking, well, it's just, high level. But an executive CEO type person is going to look at this that has no idea about cybersecurity. And the better your report looks, the better they're going to trust just off subconsciously that this guy knows what he's talking about. So keep that in mind. All right, is the red team permitted to attack them? No, that was not in our thing. Now, here we go, campaign planning. So this is where the keys to everything start. You have to plan everything. And you have to plan everything before you go in there. And this is where a lot of pen testers don't like doing this stuff, right? They don't like going in and saying, well, let's spend hours and hours just theoretical knowledge planning, tabletop exercising. This is what you have to do. You have to do all of this paperwork, all of this reports, all of these engagements. You have to do all this because if something goes wrong, you need to be able to cover your butt. And it goes wrong a lot, I'll tell you. All right. So engagement plan, overarching description of technical requirements, operation plan, expansion of the engagement plan goes further into details. So the engagement plan would probably go to the executives. Operations plan might go to the security operations center type thing. Mission plan, this is the exact commands to run and execution time of the engagement. So that's how detailed you should get if possible. The exact commands you're going to run and what time you're going to do them. Now, why do you want to do that? A lot of people would say, well, aren't you supposed to, if you're in the reconnaissance phase and you're going to run an Nmap scan, it should have been planned days ago that you're going to run it at 9 p.m. at this time. The results will be saved here, and this is what you're going to do with them. That should all be planned days in advance, if not weeks, months in advance. Now, why do we need to do that? Because if you click that button and they go back and look at the log and you did a different syntax or you did something different than what you said, they did not agree to that. If it breaks something, that's on you. So keep that in mind, that's why they want these planned out, because they need to be able to check too with their security team. Hey, is this going to cause any issues with us? Do we have a server over here that if you scan it, it doesn't have the bandwidth, it's going to crash, that type of thing. All right. So here you got ConOps, concept of operations. Again, non-technically written overview. That's, again, going to be the engagement plan. It's going to be high level. Operations plan, this is more of how you're going to do it, the personnel, stopping conditions. So if the power goes out, do you stop or do you keep going on their generators? You probably will stop, that type of thing. Rules of engagement, that's what we covered before. Technical requirements, what do you need to actually make this possible? Do you need resources? Do you need, certain technical people? That type of thing. Command playbooks, optional. So this is, again, exact commands and tools to run, including when, why, how. So what this could be is, hey, we have a playbook. So if we run an Nmap scan and we notice SSH is open, here's the things we're going to do to enumerate SSH, right? And that type of thing. Because obviously you can't predict every single avenue you're going to go, but you want to give the customer as much information as you can about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Because if two companies come to me and say, hey, I want to do a pen test for you, and one says, here's our exact playbook, what we do, when we do it, how we do it, and then another one comes and goes, well, we'll do some reconnaissance, and then we'll do some enumeration, and then we'll do exfiltration, and I'd be like, I'm going with this guy because I trust him, because he's showing me what he's doing. He's not hiding it. He's not trying to go around and just guess. He knows exactly what he's going to do, when it happens, and how he's going to do it. All right, so mission plan, that's, again, execution times, responsibilities, who's going to do it, when. If you guys haven't listened to Darknet Diaries before, but there's one episode on there that's about the first time the military actually did some offensive hacking, and it's really good. They planned their engagement to the T, to the second, and they had, from the time they clicked the button to the time the engagement was done and they did what they needed to do, everything was detailed, planned, and everyone knew exactly who's going to do what command, push it where, and they actually practiced it over and over and over and over, to the point where everyone knew exactly when to do everything. And to me, that's how a pen test should be ran. You should know exactly what you're doing. You should be practicing it. And a lot of people say that's overkill, but I've seen many pen tests where they step outside their scope and now lawyers are involved, and it's a problem. So you need to take them seriously, especially when working with certain types of companies. So, all right, concept of operations. Again, this is part of the engagement plan, so it's high-level overview. You can see here, this is kind of some of the stuff that should be in it. Client name, service provider, objectives, blah, 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 high-level tools, techniques. Now, you can see here, based on the customer posture, so this is the customer that they're going to give us, the scenario. How long will the engagement last? And you can see here, hired an external contractor to conduct a month-long network infrastructure assessment. So there you go. It's going to be 1 month is going to be how long it's going to last. How long is the red team supposed to be maintain persistence? And you can see if it's in here. Here we go. Operators are also expected to execute and maintain persistence to sustain a period of 3 weeks. So they should stay in our system for 3 weeks. And what is the primary tool of engagement? And they say right here, use of Cobalt Strike. So Cobalt Strike is the primary tool of engagement. So that's going to be their C2 server that they're going to be running all the commands from. Perfect. Now when someone takes this and sends it off, someone can look at it that's on the SOC or something like that and understand it and say, okay, we get what they're going to do. Here's what IPs we're going to give them and what we're going to allow. All right, so now the resource plan. This is more logistical. What do you need? How are we going to make this happen? And you can see here, yeah, we got the execution dates, we got the summary, but then here you have the red cell lead. So you need 1 lead, 1 assistant lead, and 3 operators to make this work, okay? And if you guys haven't noticed, operators are what they call hackers. Most people know that, but some people haven't heard that terminology, so that's what they're saying when they say operators. It's people that are going to actually do the operations. No hardware is required because everything's going to be cloud-based, and they need $1,000 for AWS cloud costs. So when running this, they're going to need at least $1,000 to spin up all the servers they need in the cloud. Perfect. So now, when will the engagement end? And you can see here, this is the engagement date, so it's a little confusing because it looks like it's going to end there, but the actual access or the actual persistence ends on the 14th, so not the 12th. Now, what is the budget for the red team for AWS? It's $1,000 right there, and that tells us right here. And then, are there any miscellaneous requirements? And you can see here, no other requirements are currently projected. Perfect. All right, so now operations plan. So this is a flexible document that provides specific details. Excuse me. So this is going to tell you a little bit more of what's happening. You can see here, it's going to give you a little bit more conditional stuff. So halting, stopping conditions. So in the event of system outage, everything stops. So if you knock a server down, everything stops. It's not a, well, let's try and fix something. No, you stop. Everything stops, right? That's the type of stuff they're saying. In the event of an operator being burnt, so if you're trying to do some social engineering and someone calls it in and says, hey, this guy won't stop bothering me. I know he's trying to get information from me. You've been burnt. You're done, right? So you can't use that operator anymore. You can for other stuff, but not for that. So that will stop because they will basically don't want it to get around that a pen test is occurring, because if that happens, then everyone's just going to act differently. So now, communication plan, this is how you're going to actually communicate with the customer in these events. So what phishing method will be employed during the initial access phase? And you can see here, due to discovery of email addresses in the reconnaissance phase, so they found emails. So now they're going to do some spear phishing. So they're spear phishing, and they're going to be using MSHTA and typo squatted domains. Perfect. So what site will be utilized for communication between the client and Red Cell? And you can see under the communications plan, Vector.io will be how they communicate internally with the client. They're obviously not going to be using emails and things, because if a sysad or someone gets a hold of that email, meaning, let's say your company blocks certain emails from certain domains, or your company holds emails in quarantine and someone has to release them, that stuff can get caught, and then now people know there's a pen test, and then you know how people will start communicating with each other. So all right, so if there's a system outage, the Red Cell will continue the engagement. That's false. They will stop. It says right here, halting, stopping. All right. Now, the mission plan, this is going to be a little bit more what exactly is going to be happening. Not so much high level, but actually exactly what is happening and when it's happening. Some of this may need to be written as you're doing it, so keep that in mind. So when will the phishing campaign end? So you see we have exact dates. The phishing campaign will last from 10/23 to 21. So what that tells you is this isn't a thing where you run it and then we haven't gotten anyone to click on it yet, so we just keep running it. No. The day you said you were done with it, you're done with it. If you got nobody, you got nobody. That's on you, right? That's it. You're done. You cannot step outside these scopes, and you have to understand that for legality reasons. And I know I keep saying it, and I harp on it, but I'm telling you, I've seen it done over and over. Very experienced hackers have stepped outside their scope. And then on the other side, the customer sometimes makes the mistake. It gives you an IP they shouldn't have. And when that happens, you have all this documentation to show it wasn't us. That was you guys. You guys gave us that IP. We have proof. And now you're not legally liable. All right. So are you permitted to attack 10.10.6.7.8? And the answer is no, because you can see targets here. And usually here where it says bean mail, bean prod, be the bean, whatever, those are great targets, but I would also keep IPs with them, not just DNS, because they could change DNS records if it has DHCP, that type of stuff, and you might have done one target last week and then now it's a different IP, and they're like, hey, you didn't attack the right one, and you know what I mean? So when a stopping condition is encountered, you should continue working. Obviously not. When a stopping condition is encountered, you're done. Stop right there. So now we've covered how you can quantify campaign plans into documents to prepare for successful red team engagement. That's true. So the biggest thing I can tell you is if you ever run into red team engagements, now red team in my opinion is more fun than pen tests. I love red teaming versus pen testing because I love the scenario based. I love it makes you feel more like a criminal, more like a hacker to me. And when I say a criminal, I don't mean like I will never do criminal activity, but it just makes you feel like you're doing something you shouldn't, because you have a scenario. You have, hey, we got in this way. Let's see what we can find. There's something about red teaming that's just so fun to me. So this is how you need to plan it, though. And pen testing is actually a little bit more detailed. I mean, a lot more detailed than this stuff. But pen testing is even more engaged, more logistically planned. And things need to be planned out very methodically and done correctly. If something varies from the plan, don't just work with it. Communicate to the customer. Change your plan. It's okay if something changes. That's fine. But you need to communicate with the customer, change your guys' mission plan, and go back and do it properly. Because if you don't, this is where you get yourself into some trouble. And I promise you, it's one thing if you work for a company, because worst case, you're probably fired. But it's another if you own the company and you're doing pen tests for yourself or anything like that, because now you're getting sued and now you're talking a lot of money. So hopefully this helps you guys. Hopefully you guys like this. We're going to keep doing this path. These knowledge-based ones will probably knock out quickly. It depends on, so if there's some knowledge-based ones mixed in there, you may see 2 or 3 a week, but the actual execution ones may take longer. It just depends how difficult they are, how much time it takes to set up the videos and things like that. So thank you guys. If you guys are enjoying the content, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, and make sure you check out the Patreon. Thanks.